running theme of the book is the constant struggle against the technical limitations.
It was hard because I was, you know, I was in the hot seat. I believe it was when we started Pepper that I think John had said, "Oh, we want to go, you know, we want to do this, and we don't want things to, you know, we've done this, we've done that," and you know, everyone looks at me as, I mean, you know, what do I do? You know, I've got to, you know, do this. You know, I had nothing to help me except what I could conjure up. I mean, ordinary instruments weren't just mic'd as ordinary instruments. They, you know, I'd sort of mic them from different places and, you know, just to try and create different sounds.
Just a few years ago was the first time that I went inside Abbey Road and into the studios and saw the studios. And when you go into Studio 2 and you see it's a room.
Yes.
It's impossible for there to be tricks. There's not a vocal booth, there's not a drum booth, there's nothing separated. It's just, here's a box, and this is where, you know, 80% of these records were made.
Yeah, I know. Well,
I mean, I was so struck by it.
And you saw it with the new decor as well. I mean, you imagine it without those walls not being painted as pristine as they are. I don't know whether you saw it with the new sanded floor and stuff and the new sort of quilting hanging down the walls, but, you know, they didn't have that. It was like dirt.
This is already dressed up.
Dirty floor. But we did have sort of screens, and I did sort of have half a booth to put Ringo's drums in. But I just had to do the best I could, you know.
What are the advantages that come from that? I mean, what's those limitations, though they were this incredible struggle, you know, obviously the other side of that is the ways that it forced you to innovate. And
yes, exactly what came out the other end. I mean, people still use or try and use those sounds and those microphone techniques. You know, today, you know, the obvious one is the bass drum. When, you know, the story of that, when the rule of thumb or the rules of EMI, when I first started, when you couldn't move the bass drum mic further than 18 inches or 2 foot to the bass drum because the air pressure would damage the microphone. And I wanted, in my head, had this sound of the bass drum sort of up there and being solid. And the first time I tried that, I stuffed that sweater with the four necks in from the Help film, was it? Into the bass drum, took the front skin off and got Mal Evans to put the skin back on, because Ringo didn't do that sort of stuff. Mal did that. So, and then I had this sort of solid big bass drum, and eventually I used to just take the front skin off and just put a little bit of packing in and put the microphone really close to the bass drum. But I got into trouble for that from the management, and eventually there was a sort of a meeting, and, you know, and they said, no, Geoff can't do that, but, you know, this is our sound now. And anyway, I did get a written permission. I've got a letter somewhere saying that I could move the bass drum mic in to that position, but only on Beatles sessions. But of course, as the months and years progressed, everyone was using the same technique, you know.
Yeah, I once asked George Martin if he thought if Sgt. Pepper would have sounded better if it had been recorded on 24-track, and he said absolutely not. He was adamant about that. The working in 4-track really forced everybody to make creative decisions every step of the way, and he felt that was a big part of the magic of that album, was committing to the sounds and working from there. You've talked about.
Yeah, we didn't have any choice. I mean, we were working on 4-track, and if we were laying down, you know, drums, bass, guitar to start with, and maybe a guide vocal. The guide vocal would go on one track, but the drums, bass, and one guitar would be all on one track. So it had to have its finished EQ on it, and it had to have its finished reverb or echo on it, and its correct balance. And I was so limited with my equalisation on the mixing console. It was just treble and bass. There was no selectable frequencies except for this outboard box that I had in a patch bay somewhere. The reason why, for instance, the bass and the drums might be on one track is if I did make an error and I did need a bit more bass. This is on the earlier recordings I did. I could actually put more bass in EQ-wise to bring the bass out, and if I wanted more drums, just put some treble in and bring the drums out a little bit. But I was totally limited there. But we had to make decisions, and they were basically the finished. Every overdub that went on top was like the finished sound, you know, with its finished equalisation.
But is there a single sound, a single moment on a record that is the first thing that you think of as, you know, that's the thing I'm proudest of. That's the thing where we really broke the most ground. What's that first moment that comes to your head?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, you lead the book with the Tomorrow Never Knows session, but
no, I'm just thinking of a particular sound. I mean, maybe I just don't know. I mean, Paul's bass, when we dragged the bass amp out into the studio and started doing that, and he spent all those hours doing his bass overdubs on the tracks. You know, the orchestra on Day in the Life, the piano chord on the end of Day in the Life. I mean, they're all instances of memorable sort of moments. But the sounds, I mean, I can't really, nothing really.
Oh, when you use the loudspeaker as a microphone.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, yeah. But again, that's another bass thing, and I, the theory then is we're going back to Revolver. The theory was, because I was still after this particular bass sound and still trying to strive for what I was hearing on American records, having been in the mastering room. In desperation, I guess, for want of a better word, I used a loudspeaker as a microphone in front of the bass. My theory being, as young as I was, that what a speaker can push out, a speaker can take back in. So I got the maintenance guy to wire the speaker up as a microphone, and that's what we used on Paperback Writer and Rain. And I sort of put all these compressors in, and it just went up there, and the needle didn't move, and I just had to, I could do what I liked with the bass, you know. But then that sort of texture on that bass only really suited those two particular songs. Basically, they were done basically at the same time. And then there again, as I said, as we progressed, if we'd have done a sound on one record, we weren't going to use the same sound on the next record, so it became more hard and more hard and more hard, you know. But but looking back on it all, you know, it's great having got through it all after, you know, and still being able to do it, you know.